Well, welcome everyone. I'm Nicholas Torres. I'm the one of the co-founders and the publisher of the Social Innovations Journal, and we're very excited to bring you today, in partnership with Ashoka U, the Meet the Authors event, New Horizons of Social Innovation in Changemaker Education and Research. Again, thank you again. Ashoka has been an amazing partner as we continue to learn with and from each other across the globe. But we have today I'm just going to provide a little bit of overview of the journal if you don't know about the history of the journal, how it got launched, and then go back, Nikolai. And then I'll turn it over to Heather McLeod, who's going to take you through the welcome overview and framing and meet the authors, and then we'll have some concluding comments. If you don't know about the journal, next slide. We started in about 2010, a little before that, when we realized there was a gap in where people could, in the social sector, could learn with and from each other, whether it be within your own communities or really across the globe. It started in Greater Philadelphia in the United States and now has expanded globally. And through partnerships like Ashoka, we can bring the best to you from around the globe of those leaders within the particular industries. Next slide. We publish on 6 themes: education, human services, social mobility, and health. 4 themes, and then all of the themes are framed within social innovation, social enterprise, system change, and policy and collaborations. And as you see below you, these are our primary curator partnerships and sort of global networks or organizations across the globe, experts within their own industry. Next slide. We always invite, even though we have curation partners, we always invite, it's an open access journal, free to everybody, and therefore we always, and once in a while, we push out a solicitation for articles, but you're always invited to submit, and we take those articles that you submit and try to align them within our theme-based editions. Next slide. So with any questions, you can always reach out to myself, Nick at Social Innovations Partners, or my colleague Nikolai at Social Innovations Partners. Thank you very much. And now I will turn it over to Heather.
Right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Heather McLeod, Chief Network Officer for Ashoka U at Ashoka. I want to start by saying thank you so much to the amazing team at the Social Innovations Journal. They are incredible partners to Ashoka U and Ashoka and have been over the years. And beyond just this special issue, I really encourage everyone to look at all the other issues that they have published because the research and its applicability to practice is one of, I think, the great strengths of this journal that I have not really seen in other places. So thank you so much to the Social Innovations Journal team. Just a little bit about Ashoka. I imagine most people on this joining this event today are familiar with Ashoka, but Ashoka is a civil sector organization started over 40 years ago. We support the world's most effective social entrepreneurs. We have been described as a living encyclopedia of social change. We have elected over the years over 4,000 of what we call Ashoka Fellows, and these are really the world's leading social entrepreneurs tackling the world's most complex social problems in really innovative ways. And our goal as Ashoka is to build a world where everyone has the power to be a change maker, where everyone understands and has the capabilities to find innovative solutions to difficult issues, to work with colleagues, to build teams, to ultimately change the world. And Ashoka U is Ashoka's higher education arm, if you will. We work and focus on leveraging the capabilities of higher education to create this world where everyone is a change maker. But we also are leveraging change making and social innovation as both curricular frameworks and institutional frameworks to transform higher education. The theme of this special issue that we're here to celebrate today is New Horizons of Social Innovation and Changemaker Education and Research. Many of the articles in this journal were presented at our Changemaker Education Research Forum held last year, with great thanks to our colleagues in Ashoka Canada. And Ray Irwin, the conference chair, Ray is a co-author of one of the articles in this special issue. And all of this is part of what is becoming clear as an amazingly historical moment. And I want to just mention quickly how the work we're sharing today helps us to meet this historical moment. As I think everyone on this joining this event today is aware the higher ed sector, the world, we're really standing at a sort of a crossroads in terms of a future that really seems to be full of exponential change. There are these incredible advances in technology, damaging climate disasters, significant demographic shifts, increasing polarization, inequalities. It seems like we are in a world that is in some ways almost spiraling out of control. And I have, in interacting with colleagues around the world, there seems to be a level of like, what do we do with this moment? The only thing we know for sure about the future is that these challenging interconnected issues will continue to increase in complexity and with greater speed, at least in the immediate future. But these changes, our current inability to manage them, make it apparent that the higher education sector itself needs to change to continue to meet the needs of society. All of this is to say we are at a moment of possibility. We are at a moment where we have the freedom and the mandate to reimagine the roles that higher education can play in helping us to meet the urgencies of the day and to productively address what many are calling this moment of polycrisis. Higher education as a sector is uniquely positioned to help us all develop the capabilities that we need to solve the world's most pressing interconnected challenges. Colleges, universities, institutes can all graduate changemakers. Colleges and universities, institutes can also serve as the lever to activate communities of changemakers, to create the environments within which individuals across the community can discover their own power as people who can change the world. This special issue is divvied up in two parts, although there's tremendous interconnectivity between the two parts. Part one is focused on changemaker education. This is focusing on the role of education within an institution of higher ed to develop changemakers, and primarily through helping students develop change-making competencies. And these competencies include things like conscious empathy, the ability to build and manage constantly changing teams of teams in transformative ways, and to take action. The second part is broadly around transforming higher education ecosystems. It's focused on changing the context, systems, and structures within which higher education institutions operate. Higher education does not operate in a vacuum. It influences many different groups of people around the world. Of course, it influences students, but faculty, parents of students, the school districts that graduate people from secondary education to go into post-secondary or tertiary education, the businesses that hire graduates, governments, donors, alumni, peer institutions, academic fields, and of course, as higher ed institutions are influencing these constituencies in turn are influencing higher education. And so this second part is really taking a very kind of broad, diverse look at different aspects of how the ecosystem within which higher education operates can transform higher education. And one next note of gratitude to our amazing guest editor of this journal. Thank you so much, Adam, for taking on this role. And I will now turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Heather. Good evening, everybody from Poland, north of Poland, Baltic coast. And thank you, Nick, for hosting this issue. And thank you for the trust. I'm from Eastern Europe. English is my third language. And that's really, really wonderful that such a high profile, independent journal, because I really have to stress how important it is for us to publish in a journal that operates in this way, that you crowdfund for being independent, and for really taking the risks, and for allowing people also non-English speaking to be a part of social innovation. That's so important. And I wanted to start also with my gratitude to all the authors who trusted in my guest editing here, knowing that editing will not be done by a native speaker of English, and that we really managed with the whole process of peer reviewing. That was such an incredible learning curve, I hope, for everybody. So we really peer reviewed, but also we had my close friend Richie van Ruyen from the Netherlands, who cannot be with us today, but she, as also a non-native speaker, but a very kind of direct, typical Dutch person, not to use stereotypes, could offer us very specific, pragmatic advice. So we made it, and we really focused on what change making means and how these experiential learning has to be part of educating change makers, and then what the role of higher education is, and then what the role of practitioners is. So we will explore this in our both panels through authors answering these kind of three questions around the challenges and the role of higher education, and then the role of practitioners, or what we really offer. What is the added value of this issue for the practitioners there actually involved in social innovation? So that's all for now from me. Thank you very much for the trust, and really big appreciation. Do you think, Heather, we are ready for the first part?
Yes, let's dive in.
Um, okay. So let me present the um, first part, which focuses on a Changemaker education and showcases the role of higher education institutions in developing changemakers as people, primarily through helping students develop change-making competences. Here we have the article entitled Equipping Students as Changemakers within the Health Sciences capstone course at the University of Waterloo. And the authors are Williams, C.S. Hogan, and Delmato. University of Waterloo teams illustrated how a health sciences course, co-designed, delivered in collaboration with many stakeholders, including a student startup, motivated and engaged students to see themselves as change makers, improved their future-ready skills, and built trust for the way the university nurtures a compassionate health workforce, with emphasis on compassionate. The next article, called Transforming Changemaker Education and Business Through B-Impact Teams, the authors Joyce, Yinka, Thomas, Nath, and Haynes, explores and promotes innovation that takes the education of business leaders outside of the walls of academia and engages both students and other stakeholders in a cycle of experiential learning with efficient feedback loops. Then piloting Crewy School, an org school approach to social learning and social innovation education, offered by Fogan, Tomtuk, Alan Lang, Manhartova, and Otten, was published by a team from Tulane University, and it describes Crewe School pilot program that is issuing an innovative org school approach to social innovation education that targets groups rather than individuals. So this is a case study of an applied social learning program for teams that build capacities and the relationships for social change, to show how this program's learning actors, environments, types of learning and methods foster new collective understandings and relationships. And this article concludes with advice on how to adapt this specific ARC school model, highlighting a cohort-based approach, skilled facilitation, welcoming environment, and varied activities to meet diverse learning objectives. What life is guiding us to do to change business education by Mike Cronin is the last article in this part that presents the living systems framework as a novel guide to changing business education from a model valuing economic growth metrics to a different model, recognizing the interconnectedness of human systems with the global biological ecosystem, essential for fostering true societal health. So these are the articles. Again, because our objective tonight is to really help meet the authors and really facilitate networking, future projects, and as I said, explore these three questions. So I'm going to ask the first one and ask the authors from this first part to take uh, the floor. Is this okay, Heather? Or would you like to intervene
Yeah,
before we
please
go
go
to?
ahead. Please go ahead.
Okay, so our first question today is, what were some of the barriers to social innovation the authors identified? What were some solutions to overcome these challenges? And if I may call Erin Hogan first to answer this question in the context, and of course, you may present very briefly the findings. So, Erin, can you take the floor, please?
Yeah, and I'm just going to let Diane first give a brief overview of what our findings were. Then I'll jump right in.
Okay, that's fine.
Thanks, Erin. Yes, just a short intro. So hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today to present our research on classroom-based work integrated learning and its impact on health sciences students' personal and professional development. So as educators, we recognize that preparing students for the future requires more than just theoretical knowledge. It demands experiential learning that fosters adaptability, critical thinking, and real-world problem solving. So our research explores how embedding work integrated learning into the classroom environment can achieve this using a capstone course that was designed and delivered collaboratively by the School of Public Health Sciences here at the University of Waterloo, United College's Greenhouse Social Innovation Incubator, the Center for Career Development, and then 8 external partner organizations, including Kids Ability, which is a child development center and is featured as a case example in the paper. So throughout the course, students engaged in structured reflection on their undergrad journey, as well as a design sprint that focused on tackling social innovation challenges faced by 8 different health organizations. So supported by design thinking workshops, students gained firsthand experience in identifying challenges, developing solutions, and then pitching their ideas. And these are key skills that are outlined in the University of Waterloo's Future Talent Ready Talent Framework, which we used to show how students learn these skills. So our research question that we sought to answer in the paper was, how does classroom-based work integrated learning influence health sciences students' personal and professional development? And our findings really highlight the transformative potential of this approach. So students emerge from the course not only with enhanced future-ready skills, but also with a greater sense of agency and optimism about their professional paths. Students indicated that the course helped them to see themselves as change makers in the social impact space. And moreover, the collaboration between the faculty in health, the social innovation practitioners in Greenhouse, social impact incubator, career development experts, and community organizations really created a mutually beneficial learning ecosystem. So we look forward to sharing our insights and engaging in discussion on how classroom-based work integrated learning can further support student development and community impact. So thank you. And Erin, you can take it away.
Yeah, so there were several different barriers that we identified when looking at how to connect students to work integrated learning opportunities that help to facilitate this skill development and competencies in social innovation and change making. I'll just highlight a few for the sake of our time. First and foremost, we know that to engage in social innovation and to prepare for this volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world that students are encountering, they need to be connected to opportunities that are developing the right skills. So not only their discipline-specific skills, but also self-management. They need an innovative mindset, being really agile to address these complex and changing problems. So these real-world problems, especially for health students who are entering a health context, are often not very well defined, and they tend to be very complex and dynamic. So they require strong skills from students, both in problem solving and creativity, to be able to bridge the classroom theory that they're getting and then real world application of these problems, and to build students' confidence up in a fail-safe environment where they feel comfortable taking risks. That's one big problem we encountered. And then at the same time, from an institutional angle, there are a lot of barriers to training students in social innovation from sort of a resourcing side. So having this type of opportunity takes a lot of admin, takes a lot of staff time, and traditional education structures often prioritize academic achievement over experiential learning, so it makes it difficult to integrate social innovation into the curriculum. So these quite resource-intensive opportunities where we see that it's very crucial to have community engagement built into, takes a lot of time to maintain and foster these partnerships with external organizations. So the solutions that we approached to try to address some of these barriers were really integrating this model of a design sprint right into the classroom. So we co-designed the experience with many partners, as Diane mentioned, including external organizations, and we were able to embed these health partners and their own social innovation challenges right into the classroom. So students were able to go through the design thinking model. They did some prototyping, some ideation. They were able to pitch solutions to these real world challenges that health organizations brought into the classroom. It gave them a lot of access to those real world problem solving skills where they could take risks and push themselves creatively in a way that a traditional classroom environment often doesn't make space for. So they spent the term exploring those problems. And as we mentioned, it had a huge impact on their own perception of themselves as change makers in the social innovation space, which was a great impact that we hadn't necessarily anticipated from the design at the outset. And then collaborating with departments, so Greenhouse collaborating with the Faculty of Health and Center for Career Development helped to address a lot of those gaps in the resourcing and the time constraints that accompany this type of community engagement. And integrating the community partners directly into the classroom rather than needing to bring students out into their world also helped to fill some of these gaps and remove a lot of that overhead strain.
Great. Thank you so much. We will, of course, comment later, and I encourage also the audience to think of questions. We will take them at the end. You can, of course, post them all the time in our chat. So the authors are, of course, welcome to kind of answer something in the meantime, but we will have at least 15-minute session at the end. Thank you so much, Erin, because you are kind of already connecting to our second question, which is about the role of higher education in facilitating social innovation. You already touched on that kind of imbalance of theory over experiential learning and the kind of added value that you noticed, and the importance of that form of learning in health sector. So the second question, and we're starting with your team as well, is what do you see as the role of higher education in facilitating social innovation? We heard already from Diane, so maybe Diane, if we can go back with this question to you. Is it okay?
Sure, I'll just briefly say a few things, and then maybe we can hit it off to Jennifer as well, so she can talk more as well.
Absolutely.
So definitely in public health, problems are very complex, dynamic, and very context specific. And so we need a way to give students and to equip them in the workforce with creative problem solving skills. We often find that we focus on certain foundational areas in health sciences with a reductionist approach. And so a course like this gives students the opportunity to apply their learning across different areas in a very interdisciplinary way, and to foster that critical thinking and leadership beyond just what they would learn in the classroom. And maybe we can let Jennifer add on to that as well.
So,
Jennifer?
yeah, hi. When educators and organizations like Greenhouse collaborate with community organizations for classroom opportunities such as work integrated learning, it allows students to work on these real world problems. And these problems are complex. They span different sectors and different issues. Students in these types of work integrated learning activities are able to take risks in a safe space and develop creative solutions while they're getting feedback from instructors, from community partners, and from peers along the way. And as educators, we really need to learn to embrace risk taking and failure as part of this learning process, because it ensures that students feel safe experimenting with these innovative solutions. The iterative process of applying learning to complex societal issues enables students to realize that they can drive social change. And in higher education, it's important that students also get a chance to be reflective, that they can articulate their learning, that they can assess their development, and that they can make connections to their future career goals. It's also important that universities offer support for entrepreneurship and social innovation. And by integrating work integrated learning into the classroom, students can then extend and nurture their learning by participating in incubators after their classroom experiences. And we found that that was exactly what happened with this example. So we had students that then extended their learning by following up and working with Greenhouse to do more.
Great. Thank you very much. We see some first questions that are great. And Gordon, thank you. Of course, experiential learning should not be seen as opposed to the classroom-based. And I think the project that we just discussed is an example that it can be done. It just needs these partnerships, these stakeholders that are so engaged and mature. So thank you so much. And anything from the team that we haven't covered? I'm always making sure that I do not exclude anybody. But I think Erin, Diane, Jennifer, I hope that's everybody. So let's stick with that question, which is about the role of higher education, and I'd like to bring Kristen Joyce here with her project. So if you'd like to just very briefly introduce it beyond what I said at the beginning, introducing the whole part, and then tackle this question: what do you see as the role of higher education in facilitating social innovation? Christine?
Yeah, thanks so much, Adam. So hi, everybody. I'm Kristen Joyce, and I'm glad and grateful to share with you today about our paper entitled Transforming Changemaker Education and Business Through B Impact Teams. It was co-authored with colleagues at B Academics, Jessica Thomas, Cecilia Nath, and Rachel Haynes. So our research explores how the B Impact Teams model transforms business education by creating experiential learning consulting projects and courses where students work in teams, gaining hands-on experience in sustainable business practices. Through analyzing successful implementations at institutions like North Carolina State University, where it was pioneered by Jessica Thomas, and the University of Florida, where I teach, and nearly 30 other schools around the world, we found that this model does more than just teach about sustainability in business. It fundamentally shifts how students understand the role of business in society and their role as future leaders. So we've seen that the impact has been substantial. Since 2015, NC State's B Corp Clinic has engaged over 500 students across the state in more than 100 clinic projects, helping companies earn more than 2,500 points towards B Corp certification. And here at the University of Florida, the Business for Good Lab has enabled 240 students to provide over 12,000 hours of consulting services, creating more than $350,000 of value for local businesses. These programs have successfully supported 30 companies in achieving B Corp certification. And B Corps are businesses like Patagonia, Ben & Jerry's, Tom's, Danone, and nearly 10,000 other certified B corporations around the world. They value people, the planet, and prosperity. So in fact, we did some research together at B Academics last year and found that nearly 1/3 of all certified B corporations in Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina come from partnering with colleges that have B Impact Teams programs. And there, as I mentioned, there are nearly 30 more schools around the world that offer these programs, engaging about 1,000 students every year. So what makes this model particularly powerful is its ability to simultaneously serve multiple objectives. So students develop practical skills and competencies for societal impact leadership. Businesses receive valuable support in improving their societal and impact performance, and business schools meet the evolving accreditation standards around societal impact. So those of you in business schools are aware of AACSB, that's the Accrediting Association for Business Schools, and they have a new standard, number 9, that focuses on engagement and societal impact. So the B Impact Teams model develops the key competencies that AACSB has identified as critical for societal impact leaders, building on those identified by Ashoka Yu that Heather mentioned earlier, like systems thinking, empathy and compassion, creative problem solving, ethical decision making, and depolarization and collaboration, which I think we all agree are much needed in the world today. So our B Impact Teams model also responds to the broader transformation happening in business education, as more business schools seek to integrate social impact and sustainability into their curricula. B Impact Teams offers a proven framework that combines rigorous academic learning with practical experience. Students work directly with companies using B Lab's comprehensive assessment tools, gaining hands-on experience and measuring and improving business impacts through their governance, workers, community, environment, and customers, as well as tracking their impacts on the UN SDGs. So this approach creates multiple layers of impact. Students develop essential competencies for leading sustainable businesses. Companies receive valuable support in improving their social and environmental performance. And business schools demonstrate their commitment to developing leaders capable of driving positive societal change. So Adam, I think the question that you wanted me to specifically address is the role of higher education in facilitating social innovation, yeah?
Yes,
Okay, great.
exactly. Yes.
So we think that higher education plays a vital role in advancing social innovation by serving as the critical bridge between theory and practice. Universities create unique collaborative spaces where students work directly with businesses to implement sustainable practices. This is particularly powerful in business schools, where we can shape students' understanding of business as a force for positive change. Through experiential learning programs like B-Impact Teams, students develop not just technical skills, but also the ethical frameworks and critical thinking abilities needed for responsible business leadership. Our research shows that this hands-on experience is transformative. Students learn to navigate complex stakeholder relationships while gaining practical experience in measuring and improving business impacts and making invaluable connections with impact-focused ventures, leading to internships and careers. Students come to see themselves as future impact leaders and change makers.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for being so disciplined about time. Your presentation is packed with very, very important things. And again, I encourage the audience to keep posting the questions. We already have some for you, so we will come back. Thank you very, very much for really stressing these really packed in one program benefits and kind of takeaways for both students and the stakeholders. It's so important that your business partners not only are motivated by something external like, social engagement indicators, which is great. I mean, this is very important. I don't know if we already have Phil Beatty, who promised to jump in, and we have this great article in the second part about impact rankings. So this is important both for universities and for companies. This is something very exciting and promising, and thank you for stressing this. So you will have a lot of questions, I can see already from the audience. So you may have a look at the chat and kind of prepare. And then let's jump to the third question in the third part. And I think the most natural way of going to the third one, which is, what do you hope practitioners take away from your research? I would like to ask Mark Kroening to present his article briefly first, because this is, I think, the best link to what Kristen just has shared with us. Mark?
Yeah, thank you, Adam. And as you said before, I'd like to offer that my article is one of those ones that speaks to both parts in terms of education that people might need in this work, but also how that connects to changing business school education more broadly, or education more broadly. So in terms of introducing it, like you also said, this article does introduce a living systems framework. And a very quick story on that, in terms of its origin. I was doing some work in looking at the movement of a country towards resilience through an economic lens. And as part of that work, I came across regenerative agriculture and regenerative agricultural principles. And when I contrasted those principles with the current state of economics, it just became really clear that, or why our economics generally doesn't produce good outcomes for humanity and our relationship with our ecosystem. So from that, I then went and studied as part of a PhD program to sort of really consolidate this framework. And I'm so glad I did, as that is now the sort of fundamental underpinnings for my coaching advisory work, and a little bit of research still. So two things that in some ways, three things I've learned through applying this framework. One is that it helps us know that our future as a flourishing humanity will be one where we're living in sufficient relationship with our living world and our ecology. And so that means we need to know how to do that. It also says a lot about how change happens in complex living systems, because these universal patterns that we find in living systems are quite clear about how that change happens. And the short story is evolution, but there's a slightly longer story that we could tell there. And I just contrast that with the idea that when we change human systems, typically it's uncommon to take such a living systems lens or as a complex systems lens to that change effort. So it's helpful there too. And then sort of lastly on what I've learned personally as a practitioner of this is that ultimately we are talking about us developing living systems consciousness. We are talking about developing the capabilities that go along with that. And we are talking about taking actions that do bring about and propagate change into our human systems so that we are moving towards that flourishing that we aspire for. The paper itself talks about two things. One is a seminar series that I did with a very warm group that's very much open to these topics. So this was a group that was looking at regenerative agriculture. And the two sort of takeaways that I came about through running a 4-part seminar series with this group was, one, the importance of a very methodical approach when we're talking about developing the consciousness that is relevant to change, that is in the direction of human flourishing. And the second takeaway was how big, I don't really want to use the word gap, but it's the one coming to mind, but how big a gap it is between our sort of conventional mechanistic consciousness that is certainly afforded us all of the progress that we've made as humanity to this point, and what a living systems consciousness would be. And so that is all to say is it is quite challenging work to meet a group of people where they are at in terms of their consciousness and asking them to make a development in that, which is part of this change process. The last thing I put in this article is a description of how this change process that occurs in all living systems can be applied to changing business school education. And the short story is to support someone who has a developmental mindset to be developing their consciousness and to be taking change actions in places in their system that they're a part of that are fertile or open to change themselves, and having this simply propagate into their system and bring about new ways of doing things and new instantiations of essentially what we're doing as humanity ultimately, but certainly changing the existing systems as that occurs. Sort of to answer this question that I'd love to leave practitioners with, as I've very quickly skipped over this, it is a very strong invitation to know the importance of developing what I'm referring to as living systems consciousness, that this isn't something that we sort of get to avoid in our movement towards human flourishing. That the work that we're doing is talking about changing systems. And so if this idea of living systems consciousness feels a little bit distant right now, it would certainly be a strong invitation to the degree that we're able, know that we're talking about systems issues, and that anything that we're doing in our own development, but also the work that we're doing to bring about change, will require systems understandings and system approaches. I have mentioned this idea of doing this where there is fertile ground. So places where there is no space for bringing about difference because of funding or because of a lack of openness or curiosity, or simply, there's too much activity. These aren't going to be places that I'd recommend trying these things. And lastly, I'd leave us with this idea that we have so much possibility and so much potential that we're sort of garnered in this sort of academic and learning journey we've been on. And and wouldn't it be great if we kept we made another sort of stage or transcendence of our consciousness, and start to unlock this next phase of humanity where maybe some of the suffering and challenges that Adam pointed to in his introduction were meaningfully addressed and perhaps in our past. So I'll leave it there. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you so much, Mark, for this. It is really a challenge, to talk about practitioners and practical. Very often, this is we laugh a little bit in from European perspective. The actionable advice, on working with consciousness and very complex processes. But I think your take on this was excellent. Thank you so much. It was a privilege to work with you on this. And now we need to speed up. We need to move on before we agreed that we need to be sometimes bad policemen with time here. So let's deal with the same question, and I'm now offering it to the Crewe School. I mean the title of the article team. So it's Baris, Mayan, Anna, and Aileen. So the same question: what do you hope practitioners take away from your research? One of you may, of course, very quickly also to make an introduction if you wish. So anybody?
So I will try to make a quick introduction, summary of our article, and Eileen will answer the question. Like two of our co-authors are not here today because they are at one session of Crewe School here in the same location that we are. So our paper describes Crewe School's pilot program at Tulane University's Taylor Center for Social Innovation. Crewe School uses org school approach to social innovation education, which targets collectives rather than individuals, individual capacity building. Because collective abilities of social innovation are taught to challenge dominant institutions and tackle complex problems. This is why collectives are the unit of learner of our project, not the individuals. Furthermore, Crewe School aligns itself with the transformative social innovation theories analytical framework of social learning. Crewe School is a cohort-based program. Each cohort has 4 or 5 teams, where each team has 2 to 5 members. It is crucial that teams have a shared value purpose. The paper is on the first cohort pilot program, and first cohort included teams from Tulane University's various institutes. Some of their focus was on community violence. Some of them were working on K-12 education. And the second cohort, which are working now, are the teams of the second cohort are from NGOs in New Orleans. Again, they have diverse focus. One of our NGOs working on sustainability, one of them working on youth development, one of them working on housing. So cohorts meet 8 to 10 times in person a year, or over the course of a year or 2 years. Flexibility of the meetings are granted. We were trying to create a schedule together to increase the participation. And purpose of our article was to show how Crewe School aligns with the existing social innovation theory, and how other people can adapt it, how it can be used in other settings. And now I will leave the floor to Eileen.
Yes, please, Eileen, over to you.
Hi, everyone. So what are some of our big takeaways? So our purpose is to share insights for those who might be interested in taking an org school approach to social innovation education, which, as Barish said, is using the group as the unit of learner rather than the individual, and focusing on building group capacities for transformative change. We've shown how this aligns specifically with Transit's framework for analyzing social learning. And we focused on some of the components identified by Transit, which are learning actors, learning environments, learning types, and learning methods, and the characteristics of these components which foster social learning and thereby increase capacities for transformative social change. So we're sharing these takeaways so that practitioners can intentionally design an org school program that adapts to their own context and their own needs. So some of the things that we identified is that if you're taking this cohort-based approach, to recruit organizations that have shared purpose or an alignment across their organizations. So we had all mission-driven organizations, and this focuses on the component of learning actors, paying attention who you're bringing into the space, who can network across organizations and build a whole network of change makers. Another takeaway is that you should utilize a large team of skilled facilitators that facilitate in multiple ways. So both leading from the front, as well as working individually as table facilitators at groups, and facilitators who are practiced in sharing power. So not just, again, leading from the front, but really focusing on co-creating. When thinking about learning environments and experiential learning, we encourage using a welcoming, tactile, and playful learning environment, one that allows for collective experimentation and reframing knowledge. We do this in Crew School by having different tactile experiences available at tables, so things that people can play with, things that people can build with. And creating a space, as someone else mentioned, where people feel free to experiment and to fail. And our last recommendation is to offer different types of activities that balance cognitive, relational, emotional, and strategic learning. And this really looks at Transit's components of learning types and learning methods. So by bringing in multiple different types of activities, whether that's lecturing, prototyping, theory of change group exercises, systems mapping that happens as a group, these are all things that engage different levels, different types of learning, and allow people to participate in different ways at their level of comfort. And if you want more information about how Crew School specifically aligns with Transit's analytical framework for social learning, you can look at our article where we lay out in a complete table all of the different components that align with Crew School and our recommendations for adapting it to your org school model. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. So that's everybody from your team, correct? Okay, so we can go back to now the first theme with the third question. And if I can ask Tanya to answer the third question, what do you hope practitioners take away from your research? Tanya?
Thank you for that. Yeah, a couple things. If we circle back to our paper, just to remind folks, we were focused on creating these work integrated learning opportunities for students inside the classroom. But one of our key reflections as participants in building this initiative was pathways, right? So we're not only creating these opportunities for students to connect with community and dive more deeply into social innovation challenges, but also create pathways outside the classroom and beyond the course. That was something that we didn't initially intentionally design in, but it kind of happened naturally after the students got really immersed in the problem spaces that they were addressing and building those relationships with their community partners. They wanted to continue this work after the course was done. And so by having this arrangement where you have a partnership between faculty and an incubator, it really allowed for that pathway to occur. So I would say that's one of our key takeaways from the work. And then the last one is more something that's informing our work in the future. So the way that we originally designed this engagement was curating innovation challenges and working with host organizations. And that took a lot of time in bringing that into the classroom. And so we were kind of challenged with the fact of, okay, we've got some successes here. How might we scale this model? And we've taken a pivot since that initial pilot was done to kind of look at a more place-based learning model where we actually bring in community members at 3 strategic points during the course, and kind of focusing on these 3 kind of core elements. One being an exercise around need finding, where the students work directly with community members to establish needs. The second engagement where community members come in is more around that co-creation model and building out prototypes. And then the third engagement is more the demonstrating, where the students have the opportunity to present their work and kind of continue that conversation. And we found that has led to some like really interesting, because we're piloting this initiative now, just some really interesting opportunities where you can have community members come in from lived experience, from content experience, drop in and out of these 3 sessions, and it's really creates a dynamic where there's less work or of an ask of community members as well. So it's getting us there to thinking more about how we might scale this model.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. I think that kind of concludes the first part. Again, we have already lots of great questions. So whatever time we save, we will definitely use it for talking to the audience and talking about the authors themselves, because it is also a great opportunity. So yes, keep posting the questions. Of course, if you will decide to just pose that question at the end, that's also fine. But as we see, there is some very exciting dialogue already going on. So thank you very much on tackling these 3 questions in a very collaborative way. I think this is one of the things that comes out and really aligns with Ashoka, this collaborative effort at educating change makers, the role of all the stakeholders, not just university instructors, all the partners, including business partners who are also mission driven. Very often it's not just about these indicators and these accreditation points. It is about people, and it is about the relationships, the true engagement, very, very positive things. And so that's very hopeful. For now, let's park it this way. So Heather, do you have anything to the first part, or are you ready to take over for the second?
I am ready to move to the second. Thank you so much for everyone for your really insightful answers to these questions. This has been an amazing discussion so far. And as we've seen with this first part, changemaker education, change-making education really enables a higher education institution to transform its communities, to transform businesses it works with, to transform governments, and really to transform systems. And it's, I think, very maybe underappreciated how powerful changemaker education can be. But now we're moving into the second part of this event and the journal, Transforming Higher Education Ecosystems. With the first part was how higher ed can influence those around us. The second part is how things around higher education can transform higher education itself. The articles in this section question and reimagine the role of higher education in society. They point out and explore the structures and political environments within which higher ed institutions operate, and ultimately provide insight into how to leverage this knowledge to transform higher education. One of the articles is written by Phil Beatty with Times Higher Ed. He shared about the development of the Times Higher Ed Social Impact Rankings, which were first launched in 2018. The rankings provide a tool for benchmarking and improvement, but also a platform for showcasing unique strengths to students and partners, and provide unprecedented data to support global collaboration between universities and between universities, governments, and businesses. These rankings are able to influence governments, parents, and faculty, which in turn influences the higher ed institutions to shift and to become more focused on solving the world's most pressing problems. And leveraging the power of international rankings has led to powerful incentives and deep learning about how higher ed institutions help deliver the UN Sustainable Development Goals and the ways in which elements of their ecosystem, students, faculty, governments can encourage this change. Another article in this section of the journal, Innovations in Social Innovation Research Towards Structuring Innovation Dynamics, was authored by Angie Fusel and Ray Irwin. Unfortunately, neither of them could join us today. But this is a really fascinating look at two case studies. And they say, despite social innovation being a complex and dynamic process that unfolds amongst multiple actors over time, research methods have often overprivileged individual social innovators and not adequately considered structural and situational context, the full range of actors, or time itself. So using strong structuration theory to research societal change and institutional change, in this case, provided actionable insights useful for anyone interested in changing a higher education institution, as well as the ecosystem within which it lives. The research employed strong structuration theory as part of theoretical and methodological bricolage to understand better the dynamic interactions and processes across social structures and different levels of analysis. After exploring each case's research questions, methodologies, and findings, this cross-case comparison found three shared insights. The first is the importance of individual structures. Second, the role of power. And three, the fluid nature of external structures. And the article closes with key applications for changemaker educators and social innovation practitioners, funders, and policymakers, revealing how they can foster interactive dynamics that enable social innovation and structural change. I really encourage everyone listening to this to go check out both of these articles. They are full of actionable insights. Another article in this section is Rebuilding Universities of Past for Future Ukraine and Beyond. This article presents findings from a series of interviews focused on the future of higher education. Members of a team of young people called The Future is in Our Hands were brought together by the Ashoka Program Youth Leadership for Emerging Future. These young people, many of whom were refugees, sought to answer the question, what kind of a world do we want to live in? Through a series of conversations, convenings, and interviews. One of their areas of inquiry was about the future role of higher education with a specific focus on universities. As universities in Ukraine and elsewhere have been destroyed through war and conflict, this group of students saw an opportunity to reimagine what they could look like so that when it comes time to rebuild, they were able to rebuild and be better than they were before. They would be more relevant, more productive, and better able to meet the needs of young people and their communities. And then the final article in this section was focused on research, a journey to be shared. And this article explored the journey, the background, vision, methods, challenges, and outcomes associated with the 3-year research project entitled Growing a Region of Changemakers. This research project was spearheaded by Georgian College, which is an Ashoka U Changemaker campus. And the resulting manifesting as a changemaker model and adjacent open access tools were co-created based on findings from community-based participatory action research methods that involved comprehensive consultation and feedback, really trying to understand how different members of the community around a higher education institution or institutions needed this higher education institution to work with them. The research starting point adopted the change-making skills and mindsets that have been studied by the Ashoka Impact Team and Ashoka. Over the 40 years of our existence, we have learned a lot about what it takes to be successful at being a change maker. The resulting models and tools were designed to help pave the pathway to aid educators in early childhood education, K-12 and higher education to incorporate change-making into curriculum by facilitating connection to purpose and value and offering tools that support growth and measurement. And we are privileged today to have two of the authors present with us to talk about their work briefly and to answer these questions. And first, Tracy, I would like to turn it over to you. Please share a very, very brief high-level summary of this work. And the question, what do you see as the role of higher education in facilitating social innovation?
Thanks so much, Heather. I appreciate that very much. And are you folks pinning, or do you want me to pin myself?
If you could pin yourself, that would be great.
Great. Hate that. Don't love pinning myself up like that. So you did such a fantastic job of summarizing the work and introducing our project that I don't have much additional to say other than Sarah Hunter and myself, who first put in a proposal to what is called the CCSIF Fund in Ontario and in Central Ontario, the College Community Social Innovation Fund, funded by our government, up to $300,000 over, or $350,000 over up to a 3-year project. We were really curious, Sarah and I, because I was working as an educator in our Center for Teaching and Learning at Georgian College, trying to support faculty who were interested in supporting change-making opportunities for their students and complaining about a lack of resources and things that could help them in this work. And then Sarah was educating future teachers from public school sector, ECE, right up through grade 12, and finding the same thing. And she was also a staff member at Georgian College. So we very quickly leaned into this notion that we need to connect education from here to here, and also community partners involved and engaged in educating, not from a traditional lens, and start to curate, collect, and create tools that would help them. And our original intention was to focus on measurement tools, because of course, as educators, we lean into this to measurement. The beauty of a participatory action research project that we created, which involved community members representing all of these different areas, and formally with Ashoka Canada, we were very fortunate, and then informally with multiple organizations and students and educators all over the place, and then community partners, workers in EC as well, and in not-for-profits. We learned very quickly that that we needed to move away from just measurement to actually look at how we could instill confidence in folks approaching this in whatever place they were sitting. And so we we shifted into with a research council that was amazing, who suggested to us very early on that the rubrics we were starting to build in service of traditional academic measurement were not going to cut it. And in fact, we needed a model that would explain what change making could look like, would look like, and why it should even look like something important to all of the constituents. And then to allow folks the opportunity to self-assess on journeys and to engage with others, to find and curate resources, to be able to collaborate and share resources and the knowledges they bring. So all of this said, we had the opportunity to complete a project that the bonus was, as Heather pointed out, we really noted through catalytic validity our own growth in this project, that anybody who participated, which was over about 200 people between focus groups and 220 people between focus groups, between interviews and community partners and our own research advisory council and the core team of researchers, we all grew. And anecdotally, we have beautiful evidence saying that just participation in this is actually helping us move between barriers of different sectors of education and our communities. So in service to or in answer to the question about what I see as the role of higher education, well, I think, we're nailing it. We need to not be a siloed thing separate. If there's 4 words, and I thought to keep myself on track, I'd come up with the 4 words that I think matter when we think of our role in higher education is, first of all, we model, we embed, we connect, and then also we convey hope, because without some seed of hope, not toxic positivity, but critical hope, we can't move forward. There is no innovation without that. And so when we think about modeling it in our roles as staff and faculty, and as an educator myself, from a faculty lens, we pay attention to how we can create experiences for our students where we are modeling the things like empathy, the things like collaboration with peers within our institution, the things like our own leadership skills. And we adopt these in framing the outcomes and in a design of our curriculum, of our courses, of our assessments and our activities, the things that we're curating for our students. And when we think about embedding, we can embed opportunities for students to practice change making, for sure, in curricular and co-curricular ways. And this ensures that both academic and non-academic aspects of an institution and of a student's experience relate to change making and support growth of change making, right? We think of a whole student, right? It's the whole student and the whole student's experience and the whole student's life, life cycle in an institution and then within their communities. And this relates to connections and paths we pay for students and the potential of, and somebody has mentioned this actually twice today, the opportunity for trying, erring, and correcting course, right? It's just so essential. And when we think about that connection, we connect students to community and community to students, not only with traditional academic or trade-based knowledge, and we're a 2-year heavily trade-based institution, by the way, so very different in terms of how we conduct research and what research looks like. But we do this with a focus on social innovation. And one of my favorite authors right now, and I've got the book handy because I wanted to remember to share it, but Hope Circuits, a Canadian author right now conducting research, Jessica Riddell. But she talks about, the social contract of post-secondary institutions and what that social contract should actually look like. And I think, connection is what that social contract looks like. Institutions are and should be bridges to community as we recognize experience outside of college and wisdoms and knowledge from outside of our institutions, that really leaning into being transdisciplinary. The better we prepare and equip students to not see silos, but connections, and to see themselves as members of multiple intersecting communities is essential to learning and to change making, to social innovation. Ideally, students can see connections more explicitly between what they're learning and how they use these lessons in community in the service of social innovation. So, showing up with questions about the communities they're going to work within and the ability to identify when there's issues and problems within those communities that they're going to work in. And then last, I just end it here. We have a role really, especially in these times that can be quite dire, I think, to convey hope. Again, my love of Hope Circuits. We need hope. We need to have that little spark of something better. And we have a job to help students see that so that they can in turn be inspired to think and work towards better outcomes in the long run. And so with that, I'll turn it back to Heather. I hope I've answered that question for you.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. That was wonderful. And next, I'd like to invite Vitalina to join us. She was part of the group that wrote the article, Rebuilding Universities of Past for Future Ukraine and Beyond. And Vitalina, I would love to have you introduce yourself and share more about this work with The Future is in Our Hands. And then to answer the question, what do you see as the role of higher education in facilitating social innovation?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for introduction. Thank you so much for opportunity for sharing with you about the really, really up-to-date and really important topic nowadays. About our team, we are a team of young leaders what created under the foundation what's conducting the non-formal education for refugees and migrants, but before, since 2014 in Ukraine, for everybody who live in our city. And we are a group of friends. And when we realize that we are creators and responsible for future, we realize this thanks our teachers. Now it's my colleagues, because at the same time I work in the foundation, what is patron of our young group, and at the same time I'm mentor in this young group. And since this time, all our projects infused with the question of the future we want to live in. What's this future? And analyzing historical examples, we found each time that qualitative changes start with the education system. The education system begins with the university, because those who create the system are born there. It is where the teachers are brought up. That is why higher education became a first place of research. Our paper focuses on a survey of the history and analysis of the current situation and future projection for universities in Europe. In collecting data for the study, we used the semi-structured interview methods and interviewed 8 experts around Europe from different countries. We strive to ask a society question: what is the function of the future university? What is university? What is definition? What is idea of university? And so, what's the university for the future? To what questions and to what challenges should the university answer? And in our research, we aim to find the idea of the university, the idea according to Plato. I already started to answer about the second question, about the I'm sorry, I'm a little bit confused about the role of higher education in facilitating social innovation. So the core idea of the university, historical idea of the university, is very, very highly connected with the social innovation. And now I explain why. The university, in its original understanding, is an environment of free thinking, environment where academic canons dominate and where any statement is taken seriously only in case of fairly systematic and backward argumentation. The university is the forge of intellectuals. The university was founded with the aim of educating individuals with universal knowledge and strategic thinking. So the universities is such environment where the social innovation should be a peer. And therein lies the main trap. Social innovation requires knowledge, specialized thinking, and environment in which there is freedom to experiment and explore. The main role of the university is to be a place where, first of all, individuals are born, individuals who are capable of creating new projects, new theories, and new strategies of management, development, and change for the common good. The courage of peace and the depth of wisdom should be combined within the walls of the university in order to give birth to future solutions leading to a better world. But unfortunately, not each university aims to this idea now. And we are absolutely confident that the universities is a platform where social innovation should be born and should be innovated. It should be experimented. And not just to prepare the narrow specialists in one field, but prepares the individuals who can mind very broadly, strategically, and can innovate for common good and to make better our nowadays sport. STEMs and places. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing, and it is wonderful that you could join us today. We really appreciate the work of you and this group in bringing this article to this special issue. I think it's a very important perspective that is not always taken into consideration when we think about what is the future of higher education. So thank you for that. At this point, I think it is now time for the questions and answers. I know we have some great questions in the chat so far. Please keep them coming. Adam, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much. Yes, I think it makes sense to start with the questions that we have already visually seen, and I hope that the authors have prepared. Maybe the question actually from author to author, from Tanya, and in a way to everybody. Have you tracked the path of students after the course? Did they apply their B Corp knowledge in their careers? Yeah, maybe Kristen, would you like to answer that question?
Sure, I'm happy to chime in. And I've already, in the chat, I've already directly answered any of the questions that were directed at me. And I know there are people who are watching a recording later, so I'm happy to share as well. So yes, we've begun that research. Rachel from B Academics is starting with NC State, and they're working to track their students, and then we'll be using the same set of questions they use to track the students at other schools as well. As I'm sure everyone here understands, that's a very labor-intensive process, and we're all under-resourced. We're just faculty at our respective schools, so we're going to be doing our best. And we definitely have anecdotal evidence. I can tell anecdotal stories of students who have been in my classes and they participated in the Business for Good Lab and got to work on a team with a business, and then they were coming up for graduation and got an internship and a job offer, and they worked there, and now they work at another B Corp. And a number of students who wanted to start their own venture, and they were so inspired by the class that they decided that they wanted their venture to be a certified B Corporation, and so they went through certification. So we all have anecdotal stories like that, and we know that having solid data is important, and so we're beginning that research endeavor. I think starting about 9 months ago is probably when we began. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. I mean, this concept of following up the students, development is very important, and it's another kind of bridge, between the education itself and the research on Changemakers education. So the next question came from Leon Sanden, and it was related to the unlocking of the next stage mentioned by Mark Kröning. So he wonders if there can be an experiential learning that touches the most immediate ways of living of learners, facilitators, and practitioners. He thought about housing, cooking, co-living, rather than only degree reaching. So I open it up to all the authors, but Mark, if you'd like to start, I think it's quite an interesting question, connecting to some others that really go into this concept of experiential learning. I think we mostly refer to the concept developed by the Kolbs. But yes, Mark, would you like to start, or anybody?
Yeah, Adam, I'm happy to start. What I liked about Leon's question here is that it is sort of calling out the abstract nature of many of our educational approaches, PK-12 and higher education, that we sort of guide or structure learning for our young folk in ways that are often separated from the actual world that they live in and the actual food systems that they take and eat food from, and the actual systems that support the production of clothing and houses and all those types of things. So that's all to say that I really like the question, and I like that Leon's called this out, and I think it gives a lot of us to think about in terms, aspirationally, of what an education system might move to in the future when human flourishing is abound. I could say a lot more about that, but I hope hopefully someone else has something to add to this thread too.
Yes, anybody? And in the meantime, as a kind of exotic thing, I want to share with you that this is Kolb's Polish edition on experiential learning. So, which is very basic for all the Ashoka fellows in Poland. So, anybody on this aspect of experiential learning? If not, we have a question from Beth Salayers, who likes this line of questioning, the practice of trust, vulnerability, compassion, and dialogue in this type of experiential learning could be invaluable. Sorry, I lost the question. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It wasn't so much a question, Adam. Just a recognition of I really enjoyed that line of questioning and the specificity, because I think so often we talk about these big values, especially in this space. But I always like to ask the question, but how will you know? Like, how will you know you're practicing trust in experiential learning? How will you know you're practicing all these things? So I think the designing learning experiences that really get to that concrete ways of knowing could be very beneficial.
Yes. So anybody would like to respond? Okay. Then David pointed out that he's curious how the consortium is responding to challenging situations like we have in Gaza, and kind of environments like that, where the aspects of Palestinians being considered eligible for what are otherwise considered universal human rights is somehow a debated topic on many US university campuses. So yeah, this is something that really my young team of authors from Ukraine kind of considered, because that was, this question of basic human rights to learn, that are somehow questioned, right? So yeah, anybody would like to respond? I personally feel very emotional about it, because I personally trained hundreds of students, teachers in Gaza. So I know what they're experiencing. I have many requests from students, asking me these questions. Adam, we want to continue our education. What can we do? you know, what are social innovators stances, you know, what kind of social innovation can happen here. And we are thinking, and very often, you know, as change makers, we hate to feel powerless. So you know, we are finding different ways. But even like online instruction is virtually impossible in many cases. So this is a tough one. This is really a tough one, but great of bringing it, because I think this is the right consortium in a way to notice that this is Ukraine, but it is definitely Gaza as well. Okay. So anybody, please feel free. Then we have questions from David to Christine. Are the assessment tools available somewhere? Are they open access? If so, I think also Christine was very, very busy answering these questions. But in case, Christine, you want to add something?
Sure, I'm happy to unmute and share. So the assessment itself is developed by B Lab, which is a global NGO, and it's free and available for anyone to use. My understanding is about 350,000 different ventures, for-profit businesses, nonprofit organizations. I hear some schools even use it to benchmark and track their impacts on their workers and the community and the environment. So it's used by a lot of entities, but only just under 10,000 for-profit businesses have used it to become certified B corporations. I also wanted to mention, given our discussion previously about tracking students' impacts, I'm really fortunate to have had an amazing former student about 8 years ago who took our Business for Good Lab class at the University of Florida as part of his Masters of Development Practice program, which was a MacArthur funded graduate program at about a dozen colleges and universities around the world. And he went on to work for B Lab and instigated the partnership with the UN that resulted in the UN SDG action manager tool. We call it the SDG tracker, but it's technically the SDG action manager, where any entity, you could be a business, a nonprofit, a government agency, a school, a project or program, a community neighborhood program, can use that tool as part of the impact assessment for free to examine how you're making progress towards each of the 17 UN SDGs. And so that's, again, free as part of that link that I included above.
Great, thank you so much, and I appreciate your being busy here with giving us all these resources and explaining it. I may keep you still kind of engaged a little bit because of this genuine interest in experiential learning. So I mentioned already this question: does experiential learning and theory, classroom-based learning need to be opposed? Aren't both important? And you also, I think, referred to the Kolbs, you know, the really old, but it's still I think the problem that you are tackling, and I think most of offers from part one really offered some models, you know, how these are absolutely not opposed. They have to be harmonious, but also what it takes in terms of developing completely new applications. And first of all, engaging the new kind of stakeholders as partners, right? And building that trust and kind of, in a way, delegating the power, delegating also the responsibility, like, for instance, grading, right? And these feedback loops for students, because we are used to grading being just something that happens, like, as an assessment, and it's final and it's at the end. While we know from also experiential learning theories that it takes the loops and the feedback that really is effective, especially if we are talking about change making and developing critical thinking, things like this. So, Christine, anything to add? And also, we're going to open it to anybody, how you see this balance or partnership of this experiential learning and classroom based kind of structures for instruction.
Yeah, I'm happy to chime in, and I'd also love to just speak briefly so that other people have an opportunity to share as well. Absolutely, teaching experiential learning-based course takes a tremendous amount of time, energy, and attention, far more so than a typical class. I can remember being part of conversations over 2 decades ago when I was a young instructor around like how maybe tenure evaluations could take into consideration the extra time involved and all of those things. And I'm not in a tenure track position, so I haven't been continuing to be part of those conversations. But one piece of experiential learning that I think is critical, which Adam isn't something that you just mentioned, but it was part of actually the conversation during the Changemaker Education and Research Forum back on like March 1st of last year, was how important it is to be really tuned into all of the stakeholders and be really careful that the engagement is focused on collaboration and capacity building so that the students aren't doing harm in the community. And that also takes, I think, a lot of time and effort to build long-lasting partnerships with trusted stakeholders at the businesses and community organizations, that those folks who are academics that are having their students do the work are really fostering and facilitating those relationships, because the students are only here for a short amount of time, and we're the consistency that helps to really build and maintain those trusted relationships over time. So I'd love to pass it on to other people to talk about other aspects of experiential learning.
Yes, please, other offers, feel free to jump in. Anybody?
There is a model called Fair Trade Learning that I would encourage everyone to check out. It addresses a lot of these power dynamics and provides, I think, a very cogent framework for engaging in experiential learning with different populations.
Yes. Anybody else? Because it relates to the comment rather than a question from Nihat Ismailzadeh, that every theory must be supported by practice. It's Einstein who said, the most practical thing is a good theory. But yes, I think Nihat is from Azerbaijan. Nihat, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so is it also about the power? Because usually, these theoretical subjects are taught by professors, and then it's very often this question that you just have to know the concepts, right, before you apply them, and the concepts are tested in a very formal way. Is this what you meant?
Yes, I think the beginning is, of course, theory, I think, because if we want to practice something before practicing, we should know something about it. And if we know some theory, then it would be easier to do practice. But
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. Oh, okay. Heather asked all authors what were some of the solutions. So Heather is not part of the audience, but if anybody wants to jump in for this. Okay, so again from David, I wonder how we should respond to the role of universities in terms of perpetuating oppression, violence, human rights abuses, enhancing inequality. I'm thinking specifically of various programs of Stanford and Hoover Institution, which have demonstrated no issue with leveraging misleading information to promote their harsh political view of world, plus obsession. That's a long kind of comment, so you can of course read it. So how do people in universities with a more compassionate worldview respond to such things? And I see Mark and Vitalina raised the hands. Sorry, I haven't seen all the hands. Apologies, because when I was this, but now I can see. Mark.
So my interest was more on the question from Heather. So if you want to stay on the last question or thread you're speaking about, perhaps Vitalina wants to speak about that one.
Okay, Vitalina then.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I would like to according to the David question. Absolutely sharing with this. It's my pain also, like because nowadays we have very, very big pressure from different sides, business, money, politics, and so on. But if we appeal to core idea of university, and we would like to renovate this core idea, like independence university of politician views, politics of business, money, and so on, power, and so on, how to be in a middle age. Yeah, universities have some independence, independent budget, independent financial, independent area for decisions. It will be like a local authorities, yeah, for themselves. And in this case, we'll have opportunity to social innovation, to really some honest changes, not changes just to some up-to-date questions or some benefits for some politician views and something like this. And what we research and how we can renovate this core idea of university of independence, free thinking, and independence, creativity. And very team, really confident that we should renovate education like this, independence education, education of creativity and free thinking. And nowadays, unfortunately, even the biggest university is very cool, like, yeah, the best universities around the world continue some games, some politician games, some depends on somebody or some or of some groups of people on some view. Of course, it's not the core idea of the university, and I think we like a team work on this to renovate the educational idea, like it puts the education into the center of education, person, individual with broad mind, with creativity to renovate values and to change our world. Yeah, what will be without wars, without without wars, abuse, and so on. So it's a very interesting topic, and I think it's very interesting discussion for the future also. So thank you so much for questions. On this time, my answer like this.
Thank you, Vitalina. Your voice here is very appreciated. So over to Mark now.
Thanks, Adam. And if I may just offer a little bit to both these questions. One thing I would like to point to, and this is coming at these questions or what we're talking about from very much from a systems lens and understanding. But one thing we can know with certainty is that our institution of academia generally and specific academic institutions in specific countries, they definitionally are the version of themselves in the world in which suffering occurs and inequality occurs, etc. And so looking at this from a systems property, there is an opportunity for all institutions that have a role in the education of others to be making advances so that as a society more generally, these types of things that, you know, morally or ethically we would like not to be true do shift. So sort of definitionally, universities have a role in this. On the other question, in terms of from Heather, in terms of the barriers to social innovation, one, I have three very quick ones. The first one is the openness of people and groups to new ideas. An example of this is oftentimes when I'm speaking about new ideas, and this is very prevalent in academia, the first thing that happens is the questions that are asked are actually thinly veiled questions or thinly veiled critique. And so, as opposed to or in contrast to curiosity questions where a personal group is asking questions to understand what's being said, and as opposed to trying to chop it down. And so to give the solution to that, it's simply to call it out and say, I'm feeling that you're attacking this idea in this instance. You know, is there a question you might ask that might help your understanding? In this idea that I've pointed to around developing consciousness, it is a very tricky and recursive problem, which makes it really fun. But to point to it as an example, if you ask someone who has never seen a tree before to go find a tree, they're not going to be particularly successful at doing that. And so there is a real art and skill in developing consciousness, even developing openness to things that is very slow and patient, so that that space becomes available and the ability to know new things becomes available. And maybe the last piece in terms of a barrier is sometimes the relationship that I have with people is not robust enough to allow me permission to be confronting or to point to uncomfortable things. And so, you know, again, that's on me that I haven't maybe necessarily built a strong enough relationship with someone yet. And so therefore the flip of that is quite straightforward. It is to be front loading that relationship building as much as possible to then create that longer term potential for change ultimately, but in the context of this question, to introduce innovation. So I love this question.
Yeah.
I'm glad you asked it.
Thank you so much, Mark. We have to move quickly. I haven't expected so many questions. There are still more coming. Sorry if I mispronounce. Maghetsin Choba asks about students with disabilities and equal access to experiential learning opportunities. What are some successful models of inclusive design in social innovation education that support students with disabilities? Anybody would like to take that question? Because obviously this is one of the barriers, you know, if we are taking students out, that is again the question of commitment, and that's really like the test of that social engagement. especially of partners. Any from the authors would like to answer?
I provided a note in the chat, but just our course is a required course, so all students need to take it. They're not actually leaving the classroom, but try to make sure that it's accessible to all students. We also have lots of accommodation requests, but I guess to make sure it's universally accessible, we really try to ensure that we're providing the learning opportunities in different ways. We're giving choice to the students. And actually, this term, our specific opportunity is related to accessibility and health. And so we're trying to get the students to think about accessibility very broadly, not and it gets students also thinking about the course being accessible and what some of the challenges are for that as well. But really offering multiple formats. We're doing the learning using a workshop, but not only workshop. We understand that some students may not feel as comfortable in sort of oral communication, so we give them online opportunities to communicate and to reflect. So we provide accessibility and also accommodations. I'm not really sure if that's exactly answering the question, but it is something that we're trying to bring the community members into the classroom. And some of those community members also have challenges with accessibility. So we have to make sure that it's totally accessible for everybody. So we had, people from, because of even the content, we're trying to bring lived experience in the classroom as well. So some of the advocates on accessibility are in wheelchairs. And so, making sure that it's physically accessible, that there's, the design is accessible as well. But I think we're learning, we're just continuing to learn. So I'd love to hear more from others.
Great. So the last question is about advice for conducting community-based research. But yeah, before we address this, Jennifer, thank you so much. This is a perfect example of this kind of flipping the question that we assume that it is about leaving the campus. Why you can reverse that, and in this way it is more equitable, and this is part of the commitment of the institution itself. So that's a perfect example, and I think this is something very, very important that we try to communicate as all the offers, in this issue. Don't take things for granted. Look at ways for this kind of reverse, very creative, innovative thinking of shifting the resources where they are put at the most innovative use to the benefits of many. I think we have just 5 minutes, so I don't know. I need Heather to help me, navigate this very end. What do we do? Do we take more questions, or should we kind of round up?
Let's round out. I've noticed in the chat, there's a lot of requests for resources, tools, models. I saw assessments in particular. So I would like to invite any of the authors who have assessment tools that they've worked with to share that in the chat. I'll put a link to Ashoka's Changemaker Index in the chat as well. Another request was for classroom-ready models or tools to empower students to work well together in teams. And I think there's been questions about different examples or experiences or further tools, resources, models. So if you have any to share, I would invite you to put them in the chat. But we are coming up at the end of this time together. I don't know, Adam, are there any kind of concluding remarks, wrapping up summaries you'd like to do?
It's very, very tough after all very pragmatic discussion that we had. Actually, it's incredible how yeah, actionable, because I didn't want to sound cynical or ironic about this actionability, because it was specifically to the concept of awareness and the shifts in our mindsets. But in fact, we shared so many practical tools, both in terms of educating change makers, and I think the most important concept again was this collaborative effort of really engaging anybody who not necessarily has power and access to resources, but has because creativity can be learned. So once we start the process, and in Ashoka Heva we say everybody has the right to give. So I think that this is the most important conclusion, that our work, our articles give very specific examples how to empower all the stakeholders, including students, sometimes very young students, to have that opportunity to give, to offer. And I think that's the kind of most conspicuous thing that I noticed about Changemakers education itself and the kind of direction where it goes. So, the whole democratizing is about empowering all kinds of agents that have been ignored so far, and looking at their resources is not in a traditional way, but in a truly mind shifting or mindset shifting ways. And I think the same goes about the role of universities. They have to stop being this rigid, bureaucratic institutions of hierarchy and power. As Vitalina stressed, they have to be corporations of students and scientists, researchers, and they have to be based on a very open, new kind of relationship and synergy. About the role of practitioners, we are showcasing programs where there is again no distinction between a researcher, a teacher, and a practitioner. Everything has to be collective. Everything has to be about synergy and about communities of practice, communities of learning. We in Europe we use the concept of neighborhoods even, and looking at the spaces that serve innovation and this collective learning. So I will just only repeat what you already said. We have lots of resources to share, and we will do our best to do it. And I think it's just time to thank everybody and really stress this appreciation and gratitude. Heather.
And thank you so much, Adam, for your very masterful facilitation of this event, but also of the peer review process. I know everybody on this call learned a lot and evolved in our thinking through this process. I also want to thank all of the authors for your hard work and all the tremendous effort that went into creating this special issue. I know things have come a long way since the Changemaker Education Research Forum early last year. I want to thank you all for taking the time today to be on this call so we could get to learn more about you. I'm also very grateful to everyone who participated, all the great questions and the comments in the chat. As Adam noted, this is a very collaborative endeavor we're engaged in terms of how do we give everybody the power to give? How can we help transform higher education institutions into entities that truly are giving to their communities? and engaging people in their communities to realize their own power as change makers. I'd also like to thank Terry from Ashoka for her work with us and with Social Innovations Journal. And also thank you so much to the Social Innovations Journal team for all of your efforts in getting everything published and produced and looking amazing, and for letting us host this space today. And just want to say thank you all. And Nick, I'll turn it back over to you.
Just a quick thank you. Teaching at the college level also, and teaching in social innovations, it was enlightening to me also. So thank you for this very much. And Heather, thank you for all the work. Terry, thank you for this partnership. And we look forward to future endeavors with you. Enjoy your morning, afternoon, or evening, depending upon where you are.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
Nicholas and Nick. Thank
Thank you.